this is Dennis Nessler, Editor-in-Chief of Lodging Magazine. Welcome to our virtual roundtable today. I'm here with four industry experts who are going to talk a little bit about the labor situation in the industry, and starting with Liz Uber, COO of Extended Stay America. We also have Dorothy Dowling, Managing Director, Horwath HTL, Bob Habib, CEO, Maverick Hotels, and Corinne McElroy, Senior Director of Client Services for Integra Hospitality and Lodging. Welcome all. And as we get rolling, I just want to maybe we start out, talk a little bit about kind of what you've seen since COVID, post-COVID, in terms of the labor situation in the hospitality industry, and maybe kind of how that's evolved. Bob, you want to start?
Sure. You know, the labor's been the big story in the post-COVID era. In the beginning, there was an acute labor shortage. You couldn't find enough people just to open your business, and that has evolved now into a moderating of the worker shortage, but wages have escalated. The AHLA says about 20% since COVID, and we're forecasting another 10% in the upcoming year. So wage inflation has hurt our bottom lines, and it's outpacing the inflation we're seeing in the economy, leaving us in a bit of a quandary where you can staff. It's not easy. The supply of workers is somewhat limited, and you're going to pay an awful lot more in wages in the coming years. Yeah.
And how about in terms of just finding talent and finding interested workers?
It's a horse race. It continues to be challenging in that the competition for labor is intense. It's not as bad as it was in the immediate post-pandemic era when you just couldn't find anyone. Now you can find folks, but it's very competitive. And because the job market is so plentiful, people are willing to make a job transition at the drop of a hat, right? They know that there's no impediment to them replacing the job. So I had the story from one of our hotels of someone who couldn't find a parking place and got pissed off and quit. And it's like there's nothing too minimal to drive someone to make a change.
Wow, that's interesting. Dorothy, I saw you nodding. Any thoughts from you in terms of how things have evolved?
Well, I think we lost a lot of talent during COVID. I think that's the biggest challenge. So we've lost a lot of institutional knowledge, particularly in the above property revenue management, sales, marketing base. And I think Bob articulated it really well. It's hard to bring those people back because many of them have found better lifestyle options in terms of the work choices that they've made. So I think we are on a path now where we've got to reposition the story around the career opportunities within the industry and really build the employer brand back and the hospitality brand back as a destination choice in terms of career.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think the industry is doing, Dorothy, in terms of positioning the hospitality as a career?
I think everyone has great intentions. I do think we're early on in that narrative. I think we've done a good job in terms of positioning the potential growth that individuals can have. But I do think a lot of that has to be really embraced in every company in terms of really building out development programs, upskilling, reskilling, and really thinking about how to grow careers for a lot of the frontline talent into other opportunities within the industry.
Mm-hmm. Liz, how about from the brand perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you guys have said. Certainly, as we've come out of COVID, finding employees is definitely easier, but keeping them and showing them the pathway that, hospitality provides. One of the great things I think about our industry is you don't need a PhD, you don't need a master's degree, you just need a willingness to work hard and take care of people. And so I think continuing to talk to individuals about some of the opportunities within hospitality, even starting as young as high school. And, there's some great high school programs out there that talk to people about joining the hospitality industry and the great opportunities that it presents. I think we just need to continue to have those conversations. At ESA, we are very lucky. We have lots of associates that have been with us for a very long time, and lots of great stories about people who started as housekeepers or front desk agents and are now general managers or district managers. And, it's an amazing path that somebody can take and an amazing career path for somebody interested in, really growing within the industry.
Hmm. Corinne, how about from the perspective of Integra and as part of the supply chain?
Right. One of the number one programs searched for is temp labor, right? So everyone here completely agree. That's what we hear. You're our clients. And I smiled, Liz. I started 37 years ago as a front desk agent with Marriott. So, that expertise that I've had with the supply chain the past 25 years, now I'm lending my expertise in the lodging industry with our customers as they work to balance those labor shortages. But for us, it bleeds into all the programs, right? So it's effectively managing all costs, right? If staffing shortages are still there, which they are, as Dorothy mentioned, it's still a challenge. But the other programs, how do we reduce cost? What is the inflation outlook? What is the commodity outlook? How do we manage those F&B and supply costs? So those programs are all diligently being looked at. I think that's the number two, I guess, ask Dennis is how do I minimize my cost? Since labor is the number one challenge, cost, as we know, cost of everything has gone up. So that's the number two priority.
Yeah. Have you seen, Bob mentioned the wage increases and the pressures that that's put on. Has that been a factor for you guys as well?
Absolutely. I have 4 open positions on my hospitality team. Absolutely, it is. It is. And I guess I think Liz, you mentioned, or Dorothy, keeping that talent, keeping the top talent is my number one focus for my team just here at Integra Procurement, as well as how do I make sure the talent here is satisfied, not to just say I'm going to go look for another challenge.
Right. How about flexible pay and things like that? Flexible hours, flexible pay, some of those kind of things. Anyone can jump in on this. How much do today's workers value that, and how much can that be an impact? And
I think we find that huge in our industry. We have had some great success with offering some of those flexible hours where we have a, stay-at-home parent that's really looking to work from 8 to 2 or, 10 to 1 or whatever, and we have a need for that. I think that is huge. I think, we went to weekly pay recently. That certainly helped. We offer maternity and paternity leave. So, things that maybe 5 or 10 years ago weren't probably super important to people. I think during COVID, people realized how important family time is and family life and how can they make way for both. So I think all of those are super important from my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the lesson in a very competitive wage environment is you have to lean into the things that people value, and those, if the pandemic leaves us with lingering values that have changed the way that we look at the workplace, flexibility is a huge one. The ability to work from home. We have modified our work from home platform. In the beginning, we were 100% work from home. Now we have team days where we all show up at the office just so we can interact. But I think that work from home is a piece of, at least at the above property level, a piece of our future. At the property level, that creates a stress for us because we can't offer work from home. And so we're going to have to find a way to be competitive in other ways. So the employees' wants and needs are being met, such as flexible scheduling, job teaming. There are a lot of things that we're going to have to look at in the future that we didn't in the past.
right. How often do you have the team days, Bob?
Started out once a week, and we're talking about doing them twice now. But at least once a week, we have team days where we all try and get around and interact with one another. It's interesting. That's not only beneficial for the business, but for the human beings. All of us who did the work from home thing, it was great in the beginning until you realize first that you put on 20 pounds wandering to the pantry. But we missed being with one another. So, I know personally I enjoy team days because I like hanging with the team. And I think that's something that'll present itself as we go forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's hospitality, right? I think we all have that in us to some extent. But do you see it, Bob, morphing into 3 days, 4 days, or eventually coming back altogether? Because I know that there's kind of a movement that way.
There is, but I think there's pushback against that. You see that a lot of companies are mandating people return to the office, and for a lot of reasons, the employee base is resisting it. They're happy to come in for a day or two, but when you go back to full-time office, there's a real pushback because people like the flexibility of work from home, and they would argue that it makes them more productive in a place like Chicago where we are, and traffic is such a big issue. When I go into the city, it's an hour's drive each way. That's an hour's worth of productivity I can pick up working from home.
I think beyond even the productivity issues, Bob, because I think you said that extraordinarily well, it's also the cost of the commute that many employees enjoyed that benefit of having that money to deploy elsewhere. So even if they're taking public transit, all of those costs add up.
I think
And
that balance too is important that you mentioned, Bob. Well, people want the remote work. We're all remote at our supply team at Integra, but we are starting to see that there is still a need for in-person. So difficult when I have a team of 11 that are in 10 different states. So we're looking to hire regionally, if you will, regional support teams, so that there's clusters of team members in a central location that's Southeast, the Northwest, California West. It is important to have that team time together. It is very beneficial.
yeah, and that
Yeah,
may
I think. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say that may speak on the retail side of our business to the fact that the meetings are starting to come back in large numbers because people are tired of being isolated and they're yearning for that human interaction of being with peers and colleagues and having the chance to to interact with other human beings. And I think that's there was a prediction that the meetings business would die in a post-COVID world, and I think it'll be the opposite. I think that people will crave that human interaction.
And if I could just add to what Bob said, I think there's the small groups on the employee side, but the conferences and conventions have come back because all the client interaction now is being shifted into doing QBRs and annual business reviews in those environments because the clients aren't necessarily in their offices. So that is a very good story on the retail side of our business.
Yeah, absolutely. How about technology, Corinne, and what obviously that's changed the equation in a lot of respects, but what is that doing, and is that minimizing some of the needs from a personnel standpoint?
It's saving time, right? So it's a differentiator for us as supply partners if you have that technology offer so that there's a director of purchasing or a director of housekeeping that's looking for where do I buy, which items are on your program that are going to save me money, and how is it going to save me time so I don't have to search for that information in the best program that will benefit what I'm looking to fill my order with. Absolutely, it is important that there is a technology offer in the supply chain. And it's not just how to save time, how to find the most cost-effective product or service, but its availability, right? We still saw those shortages. We still occasionally see the supply chain shortages from COVID. So it's all encompassing, but it must be simple, right? Because there's not a lot of time to take time to train somebody on a new program. So we've actually incorporated a program that highlights our contracted items with a bit of AI technology included into it. And we've seen mixed results, honestly. So it is AI based. You can choose the selection, you can agree with it or disagree, and then AI will know that your selections in the future, it will lead towards what you've chosen. So technology is advancing, and again, AI is now included.
Any other thoughts on technology?
I think what Corinne is saying is that whole element of AI being integrated in all the software as a service. Now, if we think about Salesforce, we think about a lot of the products that we all embrace now, it is driving employees' efficiency. And then I think it is really all of that data input that we can now build through APIs and integration that is going to empower us in different ways. It is going to shift the workforce dramatically, though. I mean, World Economic Forum said we're going to lose 85 million jobs, by 2025. But on the other hand, there's going to be 95 million new jobs. It's just we don't necessarily know what those jobs are, and there's going to be upskilling and other things that are going to be required for individuals to be able to really fulfill on those job requirements. But for sure, I think in the sales, marketing, distribution, revenue management space, all of that integration of AI is empowering people to be far more effective in terms of their capabilities today.
And Dorothy, I think that's an important point. That second impact from the AI, just technology is the analytics afterwards, right? What did it look like? What were the choices? What are you seeing savings? What's the value of our programs and the partnership? Absolutely. One of the biggest benefits from the AI generated technology that we use today.
Sure.
Liz, you guys operate on a lean staffing model. That's one of the core tenets of extended stay hotels in general. Is there any opportunity to further reduce the staffing model with technology, through technology going forward?
We look at different things from time to time. I think we see benefit from AI exactly kind of as Dorothy mentioned, which is more sales, revenue management, kind of more behind the scenes accounting functions that we can potentially use AI for. Even reporting out on opportunities that we might be missing because of out of service rooms or whatever the case may be. I think that's where we see more of the technology usage than unfortunately, we haven't seen a robot that can clean a room or make a bed. So when that comes along, that could be helpful.
Probably not far off, I'm guessing, right? Let's shift gears a little bit, Bob. How about immigration reform and H-2B visas and things like that? Making it easier. Some of the workers that we lost because of that, making it easier for them to come to this country and to work.
Yeah, there's no doubt that H-2B is critical to our industry, and we rely a lot on first generation Americans to fuel our business. I think there's a lot of controversy now because of the border crisis, if you will, and the fact that people seem to be concerned about the large number of migrants. And I actually heard an economist the other day argue that this was good for the economy in the sense that it was going to create a platform of ready, willing, and able entry level workers for our businesses that sorely need it, which is an interesting twist. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that because these folks still can't work. There's still no regular way for these folks to be able to be employed legally. So the future there remains uncertain, but for the fact that we know that we have always had to fuel our business with first generation Americans, and the H-2B is a huge piece of that.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree with you. I think it impacts all, although we don't use a bunch of H-2Bs, when Bob's Hotel can't get H-2Bs, then we're all still fighting for the same associates. So I think it's a super high priority for us as well. And I think refugees and folks coming to the United States we've got great stories of, individuals that, again, kind of started as housekeepers and have found a great career within the hospitality industry.
Yeah, no question. Dorothy, when you look at the demographics, the mindset, I guess, of the younger workers today, you've been in this industry for a while. Do you see, is there a difference, a tangible difference in terms of how they approach things and how we need to cater to them?
I do think we need a marketing mindset in terms of how we approach talent and understand the different segments of the labor force. And as Bob so clearly articulated right at the beginning, it is understanding their needs and wants and making sure that we bring the right value proposition to them. I do think the younger worker, it's interesting because HSMAI just completed a state of talent report, of course, which I had the privilege of authoring. And the younger worker actually does want all of those collaboration days that Bob spoke about. They truly want that social opportunity. They want to invest. But what they want is they want people to clearly show them why being in the office is really going to enhance whatever their productivity, their growth opportunities. They're not going to just show up to show up. So I think that integration of understanding how we drive that value proposition is really important. I also would challenge our industry is that we've got to have a much broader understanding of that demography of the current population base, because the plus 65 and actually plus 75 is the fastest growing segment of the labor force. And we have to be mindful that some of our biases potentially around older workers, the institutional knowledge of those individuals, the teaming that Bob referenced. I think there's a lot of wisdom that older workers can bring. We just have to really open up our minds to think differently and think about our jobs and how we can embrace some of these new segments in the workplace in a different way.
That's interesting. What do you attribute to that being one of the fastest growing segments of the workforce, the older workers?
It's two things. One is our extended lifespans. They're now saying that Gen Alpha or Gen Zelpha, as they're being called now, or their lifespan, or what they're calling health span now, is going to be 120. For my generation, which I'm considerably older, our lifespan is 100. So there's a lot more years of retirement. When you think about when retirement was first conceived, it was a 2 to 5 year frame that people's lifespan would extend beyond their retirement date. So it has to do with how much financial ability they have to support themselves through this. But it's also the need for purpose and contribution is that 35 to 40 years is a very long time that people want to contribute. So we're just reimagining our future. So I think wellness is driving lifespan and health span. Life span overall is driving it. And then I also just think it's the financial reality for many workers today that they need to continue to work.
Yeah, yeah, no question. Corinne, how does hospitality compare in terms of labor to some of the other segments that Integra's in? What are some of the differences, and maybe some things or lessons learned from some of the other avenues you guys are in?
Well, if there's any indication, our growth for our three priority segments between restaurants, education, non-com, and non-commercial, and hospitality and lodging were the largest growing. So I think our lodging clients and customers, their customers, are certainly looking for the biggest change and the biggest value with regards to procurement partners. So we are seeing very similar situations within the restaurant industry. That is our second largest growing client base as well. But this industry, this segment has tripled in the past 3 years since for us. So there's definitely a focus to reach out, find the partnership, find the value, and again, similar with regards to labor shortages, operating challenges, technology wants with regards to restaurants. Our seniors and healthcare segment, completely different focus, right? So they're seeing less customers, less residents in their facilities. So it's really, these two segments, restaurants and lodging and hospitality, are driving the business and the success for us here at Integra.
Mm-hmm. Bob, how about in terms of finding employees and finding the workers? What are there any changes or any evolutions in terms of that, and in your years in the business, in terms of how you go about finding people?
Needless to say, in today's world, there's a lot that we have to practice that we didn't expect we'd be practicing a long time ago, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so the median to find people is very much social media based. You have to have a good social media presence, so you're telling the right story, because you have to look at your potential employees as internal consumers, and you have to portray the company as an appealing place to work that's going to meet their values, to even get that stream flowing in the first place. And what was, during certain economic cycles, a flow of regular applicants is now at best a trickle. So you need to pay careful attention to that trickle as it comes through the door, and make sure that, just like someone who's might be interested in staying in our hotel, that we nurture that relationship and grow them into being part of the team. And the management ranks are really the place where we have to pay attention. We lost so many managers during COVID. People who used to think about the hotel space as a career found that they could make $20 an hour working at Amazon, moving, in some customer service or other role, and be home at 5 o'clock with their families. And it was like, whoa, that never happened to me in hospitality. So we're now in a different place, trying to find managers that are willing to. Our business is still 24/7, and that creates a challenge for us that other sectors don't face. That go home at 5 o'clock regularly, and
Yeah,
um,
long hours for sure.
right, or long schedules, even if they're not long hours. We offer a lot of flexibility, and the days when I started in this business, 100 years ago, the average work week for a manager in hospitality was 70 hours. There's no such thing now. No such thing.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing, right?
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It led to a lot of bad things. I mean, aside from burnout, it led to a lot of bad things happening in the workplace. When you just never go home, it opens the door to all kinds of troubles.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned social media. Liz, any thoughts in terms of social media and how that's changed kind of the dynamic?
Oh, it's definitely changed the dynamic. We look for associates on social media, and I think you're right. Like your online presence, whether it's LinkedIn or, Instagram or whatever account you happen to follow, is key. I think the other thing that many of you have said is, once you get the folks in the door, giving them the purpose to stay is what we really try to focus on. I mean, everybody knows the cost of turnover and empty positions and things that don't get done because you don't have people to do them. So I think the one thing that COVID really shined a light on is people were looking for a purpose in what they did every day. And if they were just going in every day and, checking in a guest and checking out a guest, it just didn't fulfill them the way they anticipated. So, we have a huge focus on our purpose, right? Building a better lives for our associates and our guests and their families. And so we really try to talk about that with our folks because that seems to be what people are looking for more now than ever. I mean, definitely, in our opinion, more now than ever.
Yeah. We're just about out of time. I just want to kind of go around, get some final thoughts from you guys. Maybe kind of one thing that you're focused on in terms of labor and the solutions for labor, something that the industry you think needs to do or something that needs to happen to continue to improve the labor situation. So just some final thoughts. We'll go around. Corinne, you want to start?
Sure, balancing everything. So just picking up on what Liz said, once you have the customers in the door, once we have the partners in the door, our hospitality clients, and working to make sure that we provide value for your customers, it's balancing everything, right? The cost, your labor shortages, and then providing value so that you see the benefit partnering with someone like Integra that can bring you the solutions for reducing your costs and managing your facilities and your operations as much as you possibly can these days.
Liz?
Yeah, I think mine are probably two things. One is when you do get those employees in the door, creating that wonderful experience where they want to make hospitality their lifelong career path, right? So we've created something called the best day ever, which is really on their first day of work should be their best day ever. Like nobody wants to come to work and watch 17-hour of OSHA videos. Like nobody goes home and goes, this is the best job I've ever had. So how do we as an industry and us as ESA create that feeling of the best day ever? And the other thing is figuring out how we talk about hospitality starting in high school up through college to bring more people into this amazing career opportunity that's out there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Dorothy, final thoughts?
My point of view is probably very similar to Liz's, but it really is about intentional leadership development so that we really look at our employees and understand what their career dreams are and truly try to build that pathway. So it is really putting some structure around that and providing them with that constant feedback in terms of their growth. I think we have to make a big investment in that path forward for our talent.
Mm-hmm. Great. Bob, last word.
I agree with Liz and Dorothy. All of us that have been in this business for a period of time have dealt with the evolution of the American worker. That evolution is now a revolution. It's not a gradual progressive that'll take generations to wake up. It's a significant change in the mindset of the people that will work for us, and we've got to throw out the rule book and start over and say, okay, I like that best day in the notion. I'll write that down, Liz. I hope you don't mind. But that is it, right? We have to create a workplace that's ready for the future and that accepts the changes in society and embraces them rather than resisting them.
Great. Well, this concludes our roundtable today, and appreciate you joining us, and thank you.